Hello and welcome to another episode of the Mexican Soccer Show. I'm your host, Cesar Hernandez, and today we're going to talk about Porto and the UEFA Champions League. We're going to talk about Raul Jimenez, the recent Liga MX weekend, and much, much more. But before we get into that, let me introduce tonight's only guest. It's just a two-person show today. It's Amy Lopez, also known as Azteca Amelia on the interwebs. Amy, usually we have the big question night, but I'm actually going to sneak in one question right here, like before the big question, which is on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you think the show is going to go with our limited cast?
You know what? It's all about confidence. So I'm going to go with a -2.
I don't know, like some teams, they do well, right? Like if they get like a red or like 2 reds, they somehow like find a way to bounce back. Like Luba Medica does that sometimes, right? Like they end up doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, Mexico's B team did pretty good. Look, see, it's already going great. Mexico's B team did really great.
Are you implying that we're the B team? Is that what you're saying?
I'm the B team.
Hi, how are you?
Well, then what you're saying is that you're going to have a performance like Rodolfo Pizarro is what you're saying, is that you're going to have a performance that's just going to outshine every single option out there. Okay, so let's start with the big question. Let's jump into the show. Let's start with the big question of the night. And obviously the question isn't how well we're going to do. That could be that's an entirely different question right there. But here's a big question. What percentage do you give Porto beating Liverpool in the Champions League quarterfinals? Amy, what are your thoughts? What would you say is a percentage of Porto beating Liverpool? All right, I think she's gone for a little bit.
No, come back. You see, on the one hand, I am really grateful to have children that want to mimic me, but on the other hand, it's like they suddenly are like, "Hey, I want to do that too." So he was enjoying the mic for a quick second.
I mean, maybe he just wanted to give his opinion on Porto and Liverpool. You never know.
That's true. That's very true. He usually signs, but I mean, maybe he was inspired to talk today. So.
All right. So, what percentage are you giving Porto for beating Liverpool in the Champions League quarterfinals?
You know what? When I was doing the rundown, I accidentally, I guess Google has this like option, like when you choosing certain things about like probability. And so I was doing the rundown. I was looking up to make sure the time and date and everything. And Google actually had the probability at like 74. So it was like super
Porto?
high.
Yeah.
For Liverpool.
All right. Oh, never mind.
For Liverpool. So, but I was like, you know what? I don't think it's that high for Liverpool. I mean, I'm pretty nervous for this game. I definitely am. But I'm going to give it like a 59-62-ish. I don't want to say that it's like completely able to be given to Liverpool, but yeah, I'd say.
I was listening to a podcast earlier today. It was like an England-based podcast, and they were definitely taking Porto very, very, very lightly. Like I was slightly surprised that they were taking them so lightly. Maybe because they haven't been paying attention to Porto that much this season. Maybe, I don't know, they didn't really look what they did in the group stage. And my guess is the reason why they took them lightly is because when you think of the last time that Porto and Liverpool went up against each other in the Champions League, you had that, I think it was a 5-0 first leg win in favor of Liverpool. And then the second leg was a 0-0, but obviously that doesn't really do much when Porto were already down 5-0. So I wonder if that's where people are basing this assumption. But I'm going to go with, I mean, after all that, after trying to say that people shouldn't be taking Porto so lightly, I'm going to go with, I don't know, 45%. I think 45%, I think that's respectable. Maybe even more so of a 40%. I think, and I'm not just saying that just for tomorrow's match. I think Liverpool are clearly the favorites tomorrow, but in the overall series, I'm going to give them a 40% chance. That's going to stick with.
Yeah, I don't think it's crazy to think that they might have a decent percentage of a chance. I mean, there's validity to why people are saying, you know, oh, it's probably going to go bad, but they did come back and beat Roma. So, I mean, like, anything's possible. I feel like we need to give them just a little bit more credit. I mean, it also does depend on how tomorrow goes because there are 2 legs, but I don't see why it's impossible for them to possibly advance. I don't know. I think it'll be an exciting game. I think it'll be good games to watch.
We got one response here on Twitter from Robert at Sunny SoCal Rob 25. But maybe is more of a measured response. I expect a Porto loss, but not a blowout like last year. I think that's probably the most realistic, most probably I don't know, probable thing that's going to happen. Is it probably Porto are going to lose, whether it be tomorrow or just the overall series. That's going to happen, but it's not going to be nearly as one-sided as it was last year. So I think I think that's the realistic kind of I don't know, prediction right there for the series.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be easy by any means at all, but I just keep like, even when I was searching for it today or doing my research, I'm like, it doesn't seem impossible. It seems highly likely that Liverpool's going to go ahead and take it, but I don't know. We'll see. Let's look at the chat. In good company 4.
Oh, you're gonna read it out? Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
It says Liverpool have been very dodgy in the past couple of weeks, but I don't think it's been bad enough to lose to Porto. So I'm gonna say 5%. That is.
Oh.
Adrian Ordonez says, I think he means to say, do you mean knocking them out over 2 legs or just beating them in at least one game? No, I think we're meaning 2 legs.
Yeah.
Yes? Yeah.
2 legs.
It says very dodgy, is hopeful, but as a Liverpool fan, I'm telling you, Liverpool will have to beat themselves against Porto. See that, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that's where the credit kind of is because, Liverpool isn't exactly. It's like it's not. They're a very good team. Don't get me wrong, but there are moments where they kind of slip up, and I feel like that's where the credit or like the percentage chance kind of goes higher.
Yeah. Well, let's dive into it. I mean, let's start talking about this. I mean, this is our first topic of the night. And yeah, we're gonna talk about Chucky. We're gonna talk about Jimenez, Liga MX stuff later on, and also a little bit of the CONCACAF Champions League. But let's start with Porto versus Liverpool. So that game's tomorrow afternoon. That's at noon Pacific time. So we're seeing the first leg, and Liverpool are going to host the first leg. Some quick notes: Herrera is going to be suspended for the first game, so that'll be a big miss. Clearly, Porto's captain. So I think there's someone else who's suspended as well from Porto in that side. So due to that, we might see a little bit of a shifting of the starting 11, which is why I sent out a tweet saying that not that it's going to happen because I mean I don't follow Porto extremely closely. I mean I keep an eye on them when I do some reports for the Mexicans abroad for ESPN, but I think there's a chance that Tecatito might start as a right back tomorrow, which could be interesting, but. I think that it's gonna be interesting to see what the starting 11 looks like without Herrera. But are you still there? I think you're muted for a second there.
Yeah, sorry, there was noise coming through. That's a huge hit. I mean, we've seen the significance of Herrera to the team this whole. I mean, even for those who haven't followed the team as much, I mean, you can see it from like social media posts, you can see it from the fans and everything. Herrera has been a huge impact on the team, so it's definitely something lost in the first leg. But I think regardless of not having him, I still think Porto has a really good team. We go back to the evidence that we've seen from the past games. They were able to come back against Roma and do really well. So I think we definitely have to factor that in. They still have Tecatito, which was obviously a huge asset during those games as well. So I'm mostly just excited. It's 2 legs, so obviously tomorrow doesn't completely determine everything, but yeah, I still think that it's something that'll definitely be lost with that, but I still don't think it's impossible.
Also, I think what is it? Liverpool they go up against Chelsea this weekend as well. So maybe I mean, is it crazy to say that for Liverpool winning the EPL title might be more important than trying to fight for the Champions League title? Is that a crazy thing to say at this point? It feels like there's so much pressure on them to try to push for that EPL title that maybe the priority will be the EPL this weekend. But at the same time, they also have enough depth where I mean they could still do some damage to Porto nonetheless, even if they're to try to go with some backup options tomorrow.
I actually think it's the opposite. I wouldn't say there's so much pressure. I think right now they're in such a good space that they're just like, let's take it all. I mean, I mean, Porto is too, in a sense. I actually looked it up, and since the round of 16 matches, they haven't lost a game. They have 4 wins and 1 tie. So Porto has momentum. Liverpool has momentum. But I think for Liverpool, obviously, they're the favorites, rightfully so, but they have that extra confidence of being on top of the table in Premier League, and on top of that, coming into Champions League, the heavy favorites. So I think they have pressure, but I think it's more momentum more than anything else.
Yeah. I think another thing we should talk about, as Mexico fans, I don't know if you could tell that I'm a Mexico fan with my current getup right now. I don't know
The
if you could really.
Mexican soccer show might have hinted at that.
Yeah, that might have hinted at it as well. Also, the Mexican flag and the scarf and the jersey and
I have a shirt with cactuses on cacti on it. Does that count?
Mm, I
No.
don't know. Is it a cactus that plays soccer, or did the cactus play soccer? No. Is there any soccer ball?
I didn't ask the designer. I can email her maybe.
Well, next time you'll have to find one. just soccer balls on there, but at least a striker cactus. Actually, no, I think if a cactus were to play in a starting level,
I think they're more like a goalkeeper, aren't they?
I'd have a cactus as like a central defender, just like putting them over there. Like no one wants it. Like you kind of do some zonal marking with them, like no one's gonna want to like get around that area with the cactus.
Well, these are in little pots. So does that factor into where they play? Maybe.
Right, you could put them on wheels, but anyway, I think we should probably move past the cactus talk.
Important discussion to have.
It is very important.
You're giving the people what they want to hear.
But going back to, once again, we're Mexico fans, and we're seeing. Tomorrow we're just gonna see Tecatito for Porto, but we're gonna see Herrera in the second leg. I assume we're gonna be seeing him in that second leg. But should we just be happy at the fact that there is a team with two Mexicans in the quarterfinal stage of the Champions League? Should we be striving for more, or is this considering the current level of all the players that the Mexican national team has right now? Like, should we be content at this level?
I think it's safe. I think it's fair to say that we should be content. But you think about maybe past players and the levels. I mean, you go to Rafa Marquez, obviously, right? And so I think it's a
tough question. I know.
I feel like here right now, where I answer the question and give both answers. Like, we should.
Don't reveal my secret.
I mean, I am pretty excited because I thought it's funny that you bring it up because I was thinking the exact same thing. Like, wow, we have two Mexicans who are on a team that is going off in the Champions League quarterfinals against Liverpool. But going back to just my general theme with this topic, I think that we could, especially because they're facing Liverpool, we could possibly have them striving for more. Yeah. And especially given the two players that we're talking about, they don't necessarily play. I mean, they could score goals, but they also, start the plays and help the team get those goals. I feel like we could be striving for more, but I think even if they end up getting eliminated, we won't be completely disappointed. But then, of course, that all depends on how they end up performing on the field.
Yeah, all I know is that I'm very, very, very excited to see Tecatito, just because I feel like he's been doing quite well the last few months. I feel like this is arguably the best season he's had so far since the move to Europe. So, like, I've been very, very impressed by him with Porto, and just like when you see what he's been doing on those wings. Also, I mean, once again, he has been playing as a right back every now and then. I know playing as a right back for Porto is entirely different than playing as a right back for a mid-table Portuguese side, because Porto just completely dominates in that first division. So there isn't an immense amount of defensive work he has to do as a right back. But I don't know. I've been very impressed by him. I think it's a little unfortunate to see what happened with the Mexican national team recently. I think if you read between the lines, my assumption is that he probably wanted to go to the camp anyways, regardless of his injury, and Porto wanted to keep him. Probably wanted to keep him because they knew how crucial he was to this Champions League run. But I think we've been waiting for this moment for Tecatito for years now, for him to really step up at this level. And I think when you have a stage as big as this, when you have someone who's as fearless as Tecatito, maybe this will really be his moment to shine. I wouldn't be shocked if he really stole the spotlight, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, and especially because Herrera's not going to be there the first game, I think that's his opportunity to kind of, highlight himself or, capitalize on his opportunity to show what he has as a player. Obviously, that is a giant elephant in the room when it comes to this match. We're super excited. We have two players, but if he plays really well, it kind of makes you think like, okay, so then why didn't you go? Weren't you supposedly injured? All these factors that everybody keeps talking about that, I mean, even Tata himself talked about. But I think that all also depends on how he does on the field. And if he does really, really well, I guess you can kind of open up that narrative. Okay, he's performing on the field. He's doing really well. So kind of like because it's a power thing right now where you're trying to determine, okay, he has his right as a manager to, be upset, but if he performs well on the field, I don't think you could necessarily say you shouldn't try to put him on the team.
Yeah. So what we're saying is he's going to score 7 goals against Liverpool, and then Tata's going to have mixed feelings about it. That's what's going to happen, right?
First leg, and then the second leg, he'll score like 2, maybe?
Yeah. And then he'll have his own Sincata, like a wrestler's mask, and he'll put the thing on, and it'll be like a bunch of little dragons, the Porto dragons, all over it. It's gonna be
that actually sounds actually, since they're dragons, they'll kind of turn it into like a Game of Thrones theme, since the new season premieres this weekend, and it'll.
I didn't realize they're a sponsor of the Mexican soccer show. What time and network is the
HBO on Sunday?
I don't know what Game of. I don't know what Game of Thrones is. Just kidding. I know what it is. I just refuse.
Can I log off the show now?
Let's move on to Chucky Lozano. And 2 penalties. He scored twice off those penalties. A 3-3 draw away against Vitesse. That's now 17 goals and 7 assists this season. I mean, it's not bad from Chucky, especially considering that I feel like he wasn't that impressive during the international break, and he had a couple of off games. So I feel like this is pretty good for him ahead of the summer, when he might potentially make a big move.
Yeah, but before we segue off, hold on. I want to ask you, what's your prediction? What's your score prediction for tomorrow?
I'm gonna go with. I think it's gonna be more difficult than. I think the match is gonna be a little bit closer than people assume it will be. I think that Porto are going to get an away goal, but they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose 2-1 or 3-1. 3-1 is probably more likely. So I'm going to go with 3-1. So obviously that wouldn't be a good start for them, but I think that away goal will help them out. And I think the second leg, that's where they could potentially have a chance there to bounce back. But I'll go with the 3-1 win for Liverpool.
I'll be slightly different, and I'll say 3-2 Liverpool. But just because I want excitement, I'm always in it for the fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's all a spectacle in the end, right?
It's all for fun. Yeah, it's just the game, guys.
No, I mean, tell that to 90% of the people on Twitter. But Amy, let's talk about. I mean, I asked a question about Chucky. I mean, it's just kind of nice to see him bounce back, because I feel like he was a little off for a couple of weeks, so maybe he's getting distracted by a likely move this summer. But good to see him get a couple goals. Yeah, there are penalty goals. Yeah, they're for the penalty spot, but good to see him doing well over the weekend against Vitesse.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Especially because we have to keep up with the Mexicans abroad and the goals that they're scoring. You've seen so much of Raul, and which we'll talk about later. You've seen Raul, you've seen Chicharito every now and then. You see Vela, but then when you see Chucky, you're like, okay, it does make sense. It's refreshing, not because we don't believe in him or we think like, oh, I don't think we'll be having a discussion of what's happening to Chucky. He's failing, or he's declining. But I felt the same way. I was refreshed to see him score the goals. Granted they were penalties, but it just, it was interesting because you did hear those stories of him, not doing what the coach was asking him to do, and all the different little narratives that are coming out of it. So I agree. I think it's good to see him bounce back. I don't think he was amazing during the international friendlies, but the goal that he scored kind of reminded you what kind of player he is. So, I mean, as long as he keeps scoring, eventually he moves to Arsenal. We'll all just be really happy with the decisions that he's making. So.
Who's this we, Amy? Is there a certain Arsenal fan who happens to be on this podcast right now?
DJ Cuddles.
That's right. Well, she's not on the podcast just yet, but she might be making her entrance at any point. but yeah, no, but like it is crazy. Like, I mean, when you hear the teams that he's linked with, I mean, they're definitely heavy hitters. I mean, I know Arsenal is definitely one of them, but I think recently you've been hearing a lot about Manchester United, AC Milan, Chelsea, Napoli. It looks likely that he's going to potentially make a big move over the summer. I mean, it makes sense when you look at his agent, and it's Mino Raiola. I mean, that's one of the bigger, if not the biggest super agent out there in soccer. So he's probably pushing for a move for Chucky as well. I'm not sure if I believe this or not. I saw some English, news site, not English as a language, but just the country. They're claiming that that there was like reports that like Chucky and like Chicharito have been having talks about Manchester United. They've been asking each other like, or that Chucky's been asking Chicharito, how was Manchester United? Do you like it or not? I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt. I'm not entirely sure if I believe that, but I mean, I don't think it's out of the question to assume that maybe they might have had those conversations if those rumors are true that that Manchester United are potentially going to be bringing him over, and those rumors with Manchester United have been around for quite some time, and it looks like Chucky does have a little bit of an affinity for Manchester United, so it'll be interesting to see what happens this summer.
Yeah, and just like we're saying, it's refreshing for him to finally be scoring again, or to have him in the youth. There's also a part of me, I don't know if you agree, where I mean, I know people have been doing this to Vela, so I'm kind of contradicting myself, but it's kind of like, well, he's at PSV, he should be scoring, right? There's kind of like this, he's already met expectations. What's next? That I think we're all kind of waiting for. We're again happy that he's scoring, scored 2 goals, got a brace, but there's also, when is he going to move to Arsenal? Is what we're all asking.
When is it going to go to the San Jose Earthquakes? That's what we're all saying. No, actually, no, I didn't really think about that, but just like, I mean, because sometimes like during the weekends, I don't get a chance to like watch all the games live. Sometimes like watch the highlights or like wake up and look at all the scores. But like when I see like Raul Jimenez like score, or when I see like check my phone like in the morning to see the Raul Jimenez scores, like I get a little bit more excited as opposed to a Chucky. Like if I see he scores, I'm like, all right, cool, he should be doing that. Like I don't really.
That's the general tone at this point. Like I think we'll get. Well, maybe not with Raul, because honestly, like the Premier League is obviously like that exciting where I feel like you're gonna get that, and even when Chicharito scores, you're still like, yes, good for him.
Yeah.
But I think,
which he didn't do today.
But I think with Chucky at this point, it's kind of like, oh, you're notified of it. You're like that Mexican dad. Good. That's what you should be doing. Congratulations.
No, not congratulations. Just that's what you should be doing. When are you gonna get that promotion, son?
This is totally completely off the rails, but I watched Hassan Minaj's Homecoming King stand up, and he talked about how he finally got like a spot in the Daily Show, and he's like, I called my dad, and you know what my dad said? He said, "Good job," like that. It's like my mom was crying, my sister was crying, my dad was just like, "Good job." Like I think that's where we're at right now with Chucky scoring.
If you haven't seen that stand up, you guys should definitely see that one. It's like cool. He puts in like visual stuff in the background. I don't know, man. It's crazy. Anywho.
Is this where it goes off the rails? Is this why?
Yeah, well, that was thanks to you, not me. I'll bring it back, and I'll bring it back to Raul Jimenez. We talked about Raul Jimenez for a second there. We have to. I mean, we didn't, or assume you guys didn't talk about it in the last episode because the news was semi-recent. But I mean,
we talked about it on the Our Football podcast.
Okay, so maybe let's bring that. What were some of the things that you and Adriana talked about with Raul Jimenez? Because he's now officially signed with Wolves. He has a 4-year contract, $40 million. Hashtag se queda. I think they tweeted that out, right? Did I just make that up? I'm pretty sure they said se queda. But
something like that.
Good step in his career, right?
I mean, it gets me really excited. I mean, like I said, Adriana, it's not just a shameless plug. I think it was really, especially because it was like a day after it had happened, I was just like, this is completely 100% well-deserved. It's not one of those like, oh, okay, he stayed.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think that, I mean, when you've seen that, 12 goals and 7 assists so far in his first ever EPL season, I mean, that's not bad. I think we were all just kind of like waiting to see when they were going to sign him. I think that it was inevitable. I mean, I think even though the fact that, he's, I think it's a club record. I don't think that the club has ever paid anyone this much before, paid anyone, but just paid this high for a transfer before. I think, that like caught some headlines right there. But no, I mean, this is as a player who is, I don't know. I've been saying it for the last several months, but I think he's surpassed Chicharito, to be perfectly honest. So I think it kind of makes sense why they're willing to take a risk on someone like Raul Jimenez, and it's paid off immensely. I mean, they're still, if I remember correctly, even though, I mean, we're going to talk about it in a little bit, even though they lost the FA Cup semifinal to Watford, I think they still have a chance to qualify for the Europa League. If I remember correctly, if Man City win the FA Cup, that means that the 7th place team in the EPL would then get a Europa League spot. And right now, Wolves are in 8th place, and a lot of that is thanks to Jimenez. So he could potentially carry them to the Europa League. And I'm pretty sure, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, if Man City win the FA Cup, then that means that a 7th place team in the EPL would go to the Europa League. And that could potentially be Raul.
Yeah, I should probably know this since I'm always talking about how much I love the English league, but no, I mean, it's just 100% completely well-deserved. Everything that he's been doing, it's like you said, he basically at this point is Wolves. I don't think it's a hyperbole to say that. I mean, you think of Wolves, you think of Raul, you think of the performance that he's given on the field with them, and it's just amazing. Especially yesterday, because they lost 3-2 after having a 2-0 lead. But I think even in that game, even after you saw that disappointment, you can't from people that are hypercritical, you can't blame Raul or say he had a bad game. I think he had a very good game where you can literally say he gave it his all. Now, there's a player out there who didn't know better that now is unfortunately being dragged, but I think, it was a very good game from him. I think it wasn't his fault that happened. I think there's a reason why he celebrated the way he did. It was I think it was even when they signed him, his coach said, we wanted to sign him now as opposed to the end of the season because we want him to feel calm for the rest of the season. And I think when you saw him do that and score and then celebrate that way, it was kind of like his message to the fans, or his way of saying hey, I'm all in. I'm having fun here. This is great. Let's keep it going. But it's unfortunate that they lost, but I'm still super excited to see how he does, of how this rest of the season goes. If they're able to get a Europa League spot, that would be amazing. And just how the rest of, the next couple of years go for him.
Here's a question for you, Amy, and I'll give my own answer afterwards. All right. So you've just scored an FA Cup semi. You start celebrating. Everybody's like, oh my God, it's so crazy. You go into a bag behind the goal and you pull out a mask and you put it on. What's the mask?
I don't know. I don't wear masks. But, of all the questions in the entire world that have caught me off guard, this might be
I knew it was going to catch you
on that list.
I knew it was going to catch you off. This is definitely not in the rundown. I just wanted to see where your response was.
I have no idea.
Okay, so mine is the mask from the Jim Carrey movie, The Mask.
Thought of this before.
Yeah, and then I'll put on the mask, and then I'll get the.
Fair. You already had your answer prepared. This is not fair.
Whatever. I don't care. You did. I thought potentially. I don't know. I guess there was a little bit of risk there to kind of just throw that one out. So yeah, but okay.
Can I have a hat or something? Can I have
a hat? Okay. What's the hat?
The Ash Ketchum hat. I'll have that.
Ooh, that's pretty cool. Oh wait, would you do the little spin the thing around where you just turn it over and then you do the little peace sign? Yeah. I would like that. All right. So me. Like I said, I would do the mask from the Jim Carrey movie. That's the mask I would do, and then I would get the entire stadium to sing Cuban Pete with me, and then 7-year-old me would be very, very proud of myself for doing that in an FA Cup semifinal, which is I don't know. I'm only 30. I could still potentially make it to a team and play in an FA Cup semi, right? Or I could go to a pub.
Late, sis. How do you
I can move to England, sign on with a pub team in the 12th division, just, work our way up to the FA Cup semi. It's possible.
Be great content. You'd have to film the whole thing.
All right.
Shout out to JP Santoyo, who said he would throw on the Mrs. Doubtfire mask.
Yes. Wait, so it's just a pie? Oh wait, no, the actual. Sorry, I thought I was thinking that one scene from Mrs. Doubtfire. We just puts his the actual
Also, don't know why he quoted me on saying I don't wear masks. I don't walk around carrying masks to wear, guys. I don't know why that's quoted.
Let's see. Our buddy Francisco Velasco, my co-host to Show's podcast, he says, "Oh my God, someone needs to do that celebration now." I'm guessing he's talking about the Jim Carrey mask. I assume that he was talking. Also, we have 4 or 5 people who definitely agreed and about the 7th place in the EPL table thing. You would think that I would know this as well, but that's because I haven't written an article on Raul Jimenez in about a couple weeks. If I was writing an article on this, I would probably be more up to date and actually be able to confirm that thing. But yeah, it does look like 7th place goes to the 7th place of the EPL. They go to Europa League. That is assuming that the FA Cup is won by Man City. All right, Amy, let's move on to everyone's favorite talking point when it comes to Mexican soccer. When you ask Mexican soccer fans, what is the most important thing to you? They all, in unison, will all say Major League Soccer. That is the number one thing that's at the
I'm
top of
so
their list.
happy I'm on the show today. I'm so happy Francisco's on the chat today. Let's go out to Francisco.
All right, we got it. We do have to talk about Carlos Vela, though. I mean, he's arguably been the best player MLS season so far.
Do we though? I mean, some people in the chat might say we don't have to talk about him.
Well, if we have to talk about Jurado for who's basically doing well for 3 months for a team that should be relegated, we should be talking about Vela.
This is where everybody in the chat starts throwing really obscure Mexicans abroad, and it's like, oh, are you guys going to talk about this person? Are you guys going to talk about that person?
Tell me how Chaton Enriquez is doing. No, but look, but we do have to bring him up. I mean, so because he got a goal and assist, and I mean that was probably the big MLS game of the season so far between LAFC and DC United. And that's, I don't know, that's a commanding result right there for LAFC. I thought it was gonna be closer. I don't know. I was pretty impressed by that. But let's talk about LAFC. Let's talk about Vela. I mean, what are your thoughts on him so far?
You know what? I really like that game for a number of reasons, but I think the main reason was, yes, guys, I have been dying to talk about children. It's fine, guys. They take care of themselves. But I have been. Give me a second. Give me 1 second.
See, even Amy's kids. You just bring up Major League Soccer, and Amy's
kids
are
so excited. They're just pumped. That's what.
You know what? Are you assuming they're excited? Maybe they're also.
Maybe they're also upset. It's true. Maybe this is my own house turning against me. It's true.
It's kind of like it's like my dad. Like sometimes I feel like I leave kind of like soccer Twitter, and then I go talk to my dad, and then he gives me a hard time. He's like, "Oh, you still like Diego Reyes?" I'm like, "Yeah, no, he's a decent defender." And then he'll start making fun of me. He's like, "Oh, what are your thoughts on Vela?" I was like, "Oh, he's like, no, Vela's nothing." So it's the same thing. Sometimes we, even at home, even within our families, they still disagree with us.
Okay, they seem fine. They seem fine. Yeah. But no, like I was saying, I really enjoyed that game, but the main reason was because Vela missed a penalty, and I wasn't completely oh, he missed a penalty. This is the end. This is where he falls. This is where everybody gets their validation. There was a teeny part of me that was like, he's still gonna pick it up, and he did. And I think that, I mean, his attitude throughout this whole season, throughout his whole, just way of being has been really good. Yeah, I will say to those that critique, at this point, I can kind of agree where it's getting to be a little bit too easy.
Yeah.
But I want to also wait until the end of the season, because if they get eliminated again or they end up, losing in a playoff, then at that point it'll be like, okay, what's your next move? I don't think he'll leave. But I think I'm enjoying very much how he's playing. I'm enjoying very much how he's talking. And I think that I still don't see any worry to him not being part of the national team and the larger picture of it all. But I really enjoyed that game. I think it was because at the end of the day, it wasn't just about him. It's a really good team. They have a really commanding, presence whenever they get on the field. But if a player's happy, then that's really all you can expect from them, being happy, performing well in the field, and then hopefully, yes, of course, there's that dilemma, but hopefully translating to the national team.
Yeah, and I think that's the. I mean, because I do. It's funny because I'm not even I like Liga MX and MLS. I just feel like I have to defend it all the time just because there's so much hatred from Liga MX fans. It makes me feel as if I'm a huge MLS fan, but no, I like both. I just feel like I have to defend it so much that I'm like, man, do I really like MLS so much? I was like, no, I just have to kind of constantly defend it. But the thing I do agree with some of those fans who are skeptical about Vela and Major League Soccer is that when you see him doing just exceeding expectations, I'm not even exceeding expectations. I mean, he had high expectations to begin with, but just to be so dominant in Major League Soccer, you do kind of feel as if, okay, he is obviously 100%, even though he's already had a full season in Major League Soccer, still capable of doing something at a much bigger league. He is still capable of being a very good player in La Liga. I think that's why I believe those Barcelona rumors, that they potentially wanted him, because you see what he's doing in Major League Soccer, just how completely dominant he is. That's when I do feel. I mean, there's a part of me as a Mexico fan who does feel a little disappointed, who does wonder, well, if his mentality was different a few years ago, where would he be at now? When you consider the fact that him and Griezmann were both at the same level. I would actually say that when they were both at Real Sociedad, Vela was a better player than Griezmann. And now you see Griezmann, he's doing quite well over there in Europe. And you do wonder, what could have been with Vela? But the thing is, that's all in the past. We can't wonder what could have been with the guy. And I think what's more admirable about him recently is that I definitely thought that it was going to be a Gio-like situation when he came over to Major League Soccer. I definitely thought he's going to spend most of his time just chilling and watching NBA games and just kind of like hanging out for the most part and taking it easy. But I don't know. Just I feel like I haven't, as opposed to that, I feel like we're seeing a different side of Vela, who actually kind of looks even more happy, to be perfectly honest. But then again, with the money they're giving him and the ease with which he's finding goals, I would probably be pretty happy as well. But I think that's still very significant for someone like that, especially someone who's had a little bit of a, I don't know, just a little bit of a rocky history with the Mexican national team as well. So, I mean, obviously we'll still have to see what happens this summer. I mean, I assume he's going to be given the call, but I assume there's no real big drama behind the scenes. But I think this could still be, I don't know, he's proven that he can dominate Major League Soccer. I think that proves that he can also still be highly effective for Mexico, at least in the near future. I'm not saying he's going to be starting for Mexico in the 2022 World Cup, but I think when you're looking at this summer's Gold Cup, when you consider the opposition, I mean, Vela might be an ideal starter right there for El Tri.
I mean, and I totally, don't get me wrong. I know you guys love to bash on me. I love to, incite that as well with you guys not liking the MLS. But I felt, especially because I was there at his presentation, when they didn't even have a full team, it was just like, here's Vela, and I totally understood, well, he's, he plays when he wants, or, he kind of decides what he wants to do. But there were a few of us that were sitting there knowing him as a Mexican player.
Yeah.
And we're like, this feels different. This feels like it's going to be different in some shape or form. And I'm happy from a narrative standpoint, not just like, not even as a fan, just like as a narrative standpoint. I'm glad that that it's been positive, because yes, we've seen the totally other side of the spectrum negative when it comes to players like Gio. And I can totally understand people's hesitance or critique of thinking that was going to happen or that might happen,
because it's not unfounded. Like you get
it's not unfounded. It's totally valid argument that people can have. But that's why I said I'm totally going to contradict myself with what we said just about Chucky. But I feel like with Vela, especially this weekend when he scored and he had the assist, and at this point he has 7 goals in 6 games. And so people are like, oh, well, it's the MLS. What do you expect? Like, yeah, but given the trajectory of how his career has gone, given the trajectory of the decisions that he's made, both from club level and the national level, I think him being happy, him saying that in order to be the best, you have to play like the best, and having all of that, you see it every weekend as he plays with LAFC. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be proud of this player for doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, no, not at all. And all I'm going to say is you can hate on him for going to Major League Soccer, but then again, the same people don't have any hatred for players who stay in Liga MX and never leave. So just saying, guys, just saying. All right, so speaking of Liga MX, speaking of the Mexican First Division, we got to talk about the recent weekend, Amy. I feel like there are a lot of I feel like a few storylines stood out to me, but for you, what stood out the most? I mean, I'm a little biased because I was at the match. I think the Xolos 3-2 win over Club America stands out to me, but I don't know. What were some of the biggest takeaways for you?
I was thinking about this as I was driving home and like picking up my kids, and I always kind of mention them, but even my babysitter, I was picking up the boys, I was signing them out, and he goes, "Can you believe that America Xolos game?" He's like, "Can you really believe it?" So I think the biggest takeaway for anybody was that game. I unintentionally ended up watching it because I had plans to like go hang out with my kids, but then my son's scared of clowns, so I had to pick him up from a birthday party early and stuff. It was a really wild Saturday. But I ended up watching the match, and I think honestly, and I was telling my babysitter, because I also have a podcast with him.
I used to talk to my UPS guy all the time about I mean, he asked me about Xolos, so he'd be like, "Oh, well, maybe they'll do better next week." Blah blah blah. But yeah, that was the guy who like talked to the most about Xolos. But yeah,
Is that who you're gonna have on the Sholos podcast before Francisco agreed to come on?
exactly. But then he got a little. The UPS guy got a little weirded out, man. He's like, "Hey, man, I'm just here to deliver packages," and I haven't seen him since. So I was
Can you
like, "Hey."
please sign this? Thank you.
Yeah.
No, but I think that that game was, yes, it was largely influenced by the refs, but I also think, like it sounds funny, but I swear, like I was telling my babysitter, I think that even if all that stuff is happening, there's something as a player, as a team with America that you have to kind of try to keep composed. Yes, it was largely influenced by them, but I also think they got into their heads with all the craziness that was happening. I think that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, what were you gonna say?
But I was gonna say it's really quick because I was at the game actually. Ivan Pineda from the Eagle Eye podcast, he was chilling with me in the press box. But it was really confusing for me in the press box because during those instances of VAR, there was just an immense amount of confusion. Yeah, you would look at the right and you look at the TV screens and they were replays, but it was Xolo TV. It wasn't like we were watching like Fox Deportes, we were watching like Univision or something like that. Like it was just like it was kind of like random replays. You didn't know if that's what they were actually looking at for VAR. So for you, like was the VAR just as confusing as someone who was watching the game? I don't know if the commentators like kind of like helped and had clarified things because I think the stadium was just completely lost, to be perfectly honest. You're laughing, so I assume no.
Because I just remember, like, I tweeted it out. Like, I had to watch it. I don't have Fox Deportes because I have DirecTV, so I had to watch it on Fox Sports 1. And they were just as confused as, like, everybody else. And then on top of that, they kept segueing to Dr. Joe, whoever that is.
Who's this Dr. Joe guy?
I was like, who? Like, every time there was a VAR decision, they're like, okay, Dr. Joe, give us your... And I was like, who is Dr. Joe? What are we talking about? And then he'd, like, start describing... That's my son yelling at me. He'd just, like, start, like, trying to decipher what... And it was out... I mean, granted, I was also, like, doing a bunch of stuff in between, but I was just like, I think everybody was confused. Like, it was just this whole, like, to the point that by the end of the game, I forgot what minute it was at when he did the VAR thing. I was like, oh my God, he's doing it again. I was like, just decide what is going to happen. I mean, I know that, I don't want to say like it's tough. Like, it must be like everybody hates you, or not hates you, but people are not going to agree with everything that you do as a ref. But I felt like that game was just, another example of just the lack of organization that sometimes VAR and the refs and how everything is handled can get as bad as it gets.
Yeah, and it was such in the post-game press conference, Piojo Herrera, America's manager. I mean, it doesn't take much to really, rile him. It doesn't take really much to rile someone like Piojo, but he was clearly very bothered. I mean, he said, I think the quote was, well, in Spanish, but he said, that's not how you play soccer, when he was talking about what happened in the second half with the officiating. I'm not saying whether it was correct or not. Like, what's good? I think I could see both sides situation. I think the delays were a little too long, just like far too long. Yeah, I mean, utilize VAR, but I don't know why it took such a long time for them to try to figure that out. So I think that was when it really kind of like, I don't know, like really it hurts America in the end because they did have a 2-1 lead. I mean, it looked like they were on their way to potentially getting a win there, especially after those golazos from Guido Rodriguez. That says so much about this game that just like Guido Rodriguez, I honestly, that first goal that he scored, I mean, I think that's been my favorite goal so far this season. I'm a sucker for those shots that were just like, they're like 35, 40 yards out, which are just rockets in the back of that. That was, once again, like probably the best goal I've seen live in several months, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about VAR, we're talking about officiating. And after the game, I think Piojo, he also said he was, bastante molesto. So he was just like really annoyed, really angry, really bothered. And I think he did have a little bit of reason to be bothered. I think Xolos were still worthy of getting the win, but I think at the same time, I think Piojo was worthy of being that bothered for how VAR was utilized in that match.
Yeah, I mean, it was a home game for Xolos, so that gave him some kind of advantage, obviously. But I think Piojo said something along the lines of like, who was the ref? And then a reporter like answered him. He's like, no, that's the guy who stepped onto the field. And it was like, yeah, that's a Piojo thing to say. But I mean, if impartial viewers or, as fans, if everybody's confused, I can't imagine. That's what I'm saying. Like the whole thing overshadowed like goals from Guido Rodriguez. Like that's how huge of an impact it was. And I think that's what people get frustrated, not just from this game, but other games before, where it just becomes like, it's not even about the game anymore. It's about you losing control of what you're basically on the field to kind of, like, I forgot who said it, but it's like the best game is like where you don't really exist, or like where people kind of are in agreement with the calls that you make. And this was not that game at all.
Yeah, no. So that was a little unfortunate to see, but at the same time, I mean, I will say, I mean, it was almost peak Liga MX in a way. I mean, just because I feel like I think the only thing that was missing was, I wrote a quick little thing about it for ESPN recently, but I feel like the only thing that was really missing was just a red card. Like you had an angry Piojo, you had strange officiating, you had just stoppage time, which was like, what was it, like 9 minutes?
Like in total?
Yeah, it was like that, and the one right after the full 90 was 9 minutes right there. You had golazo, so it was just, I mean, it was entertaining. I feel bad for Ivan for the Eagle Eye Pod, because that was his first Liga MX game, and that was like, must have been crushing as an America fan to see that happen. But nonetheless, I mean, I think it was a very fun and controversial game, and I think, and I wrote about this too. I feel like this isn't going to be the last time we're going to be talking about a game like this during the next few weeks, because we're getting close to the playoffs. Liguilla is coming up. Those top 8 spots, it's going to get more and more intense as those teams try to fight for those playoff positions. I think we're going to see at least a few more instances during the next few weeks, at least in Liga MX, like games that are perhaps a little similar.
I mean, the overarching theme, though, and I don't think it's something that you just see in the Liga MX, is how exactly, when and how do you use VAR? How is it properly utilized? What are the steps for you to go to VAR? Because, I mean, we've seen plenty of games in other leagues, including the Liga MX, where they don't go to VAR and they just decide it right then and there. And it's like, well, shouldn't have you used VAR at that point? Or some ones where they do go to VAR, and it's like, that wasn't even a debate. I don't think anybody was in a disagreement with the original call. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that need to be fixed about it. But like you're saying as well, I mean, Xolos got the win against America. That's all that matters at the end of the day, regardless of what anybody argues about. And it does make things a little bit more interesting as the weeks go on.
Yeah, and I think Tijuana still should be praised. I think mentality-wise, I think they had a little bit more hunger, a little bit more, perhaps even aggression in that second half. And I think that was spearheaded by Nahuel Pan, who I think he's such a joy to watch. I make jokes. I say he's like the poor man's Zlatan. Just because he's like, just for such a big dude, he has a surprisingly good touch on the ball, and he's got like an immense amount of power. You would expect him to be as like fast and as like, I don't know, agile and as like good on the ball as he is for his like size and his weight. But I don't know, that I think Nahuel Pan's definitely the poor man's Zlatan out there.
As Zlatan's close and personal friend, I have to say that that's a really interesting comparison to make. But sure,
keep an eye, because like when you see dudes like the size of Nahuel Pan, you think that's like, all right, they're not exactly like nimble on their feet. They not exactly have like the best like ball control. But then you watch them and you're like, all right, that's pretty surprising for a guy who's like 8'4" and like 900 pounds, like just that beast that's out there, el tanque. But hey, what else stood out to you this weekend from the Liga MX weekend?
Chivas is not doing great. Sorry, guys.
Playoffs now seem out of reach. I mean, it's the same old problems under the interim. It was Alberto Coyote. I mean, it's definitely not good for Chivas. I think I saw something. It's like the likelihood of them going into the playoffs is pretty low. Actually, I just tweeted it out earlier today. I forget if it was either at 3% or 20-something%. I think it's at 3% though. That 538 is saying right now for Chivas to qualify for the playoffs. And it does look like they're going to be having to do a little bit of a relegation battle once the next season starts. So I guess I should say next season and the season after that. But not exactly looking good for Chivas, especially against a side like Lobos BUAP. Like, I don't know, if this was I don't know, even if it was I don't know, maybe like an Atlas or Morelia, I don't know, like that's a little bit more understandable. And I know Lobos BUAP they haven't been terrible this season. They're still, technically in the running for the playoffs, but I don't know, away from home for Lobos BUAP, I feel like Xolos. I feel like Chivas should have just done a much better job there. I was really disappointed by them, and I think, I don't know, maybe it's a tough time just because, I don't know, Cardoso went out recently, and Alberto Coyote. He's only been the interim for only a few days, but I was expecting a lot more from Chivas in that match.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I know I plugged it, but I think it does add, I don't know, like it buries them even more. But I mean, the Liga MX, the femenil side isn't even doing that great. So I think as an institution, they're just not having a great time right now. Where you know, as much as fans are upset, I think as much as people don't try not to, you know, care, but Chivas has had a really tough time of it. And I talk about the Liga MX femenil because I think that's part of the story. I mean, you just last season you had issues about them possibly not paying the players. Adriana has talked about it on the podcast about them, you know, letting players know that they couldn't play on the team like very late into before the season started. So then it was difficult for them to be able to get onto other team. So I think and then you have this happening on the men's side. So I think as an institution, they're having a lot of problems that, you know, are now just completely imploding right in front of them. That I mean, you lose to Lobos. It's not exactly something that anybody wants to see for any of their teams.
Yeah.
But for someone as big, I mean, they talked about it last week, you know, for a team as big as Chivas, this looks really bad.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when we're looking at other results from the Liga MX weekend that kind of stood out, I think we have to talk about really quickly Toluca 5, Monterrey 1. I mean, this is the Toluca I expected after the big signings, but I mean, not to this extent. 5-1 win over Monterrey. I mean, that's huge. I think that's not something that should be overlooked. I remember even seeing who it might have been Maidana, one of the new signings. I was reading some sort of it was like an interview with him in Esto before the match, and he was talking about just like, yeah, the team, they're not like counting out the idea of the playoffs. They think they can still push for it. And in my mind, I was like, yeah, sure, whatever, dude. You guys aren't qualifying for the playoffs. And I didn't think for a second that they were going to be able to qualify for the playoffs. But I mean, when you get that win over Monterrey, I mean, it feels. I think the confidence that can really provide the squad, especially, you know, with a new manager as well. I mean, they have La Volpe taking charge now too. So I wouldn't be surprised if Toluca makes a late run there. I mean, they were just extremely impressive. I was making a best 11 from the weekend, and I think about 4 players from Toluca's starting 11 made that best 11. And if you look at the league table right now, I mean, they're only in 10th place. They 17 points. I mean, now there's a 4-point difference between them and Pachuca, but I mean, I'll mention something about Pachuca later on. But I mean, Pachuca, I mean, they're a little. You can't really trust them away from home. So I mean, Toluca still in the running.
Yeah, I mean, this is where it gets kind of fun towards the end of the season, obviously, especially at the bottom of the table. You definitely see certain teams kind of slip through where you didn't expect them to. So, I mean, Toluca kind of I mean, they face Querétaro next week, and then they have America. I mean, it totally depends. What?
I said easy and then not easy.
But then again, you also have the factors, right? I mean, America did just lose this weekend against Shaw. So you have all these little things that start happening at the end of the season or the Liga MX just starts Liga MXing, you know. Monterrey lost to Toluca 5-1 this year, you know. So it just gets weird at this point. This is where it's just like all just mush, and we'll just see what happens.
Well, speaking Querétaro, Cruz Azul got a 3-0 win over Querétaro. You had 2 goals from Milton Caraglio. And that's now 4 wins in the last 5 games for Cruz Azul. And also a little bit of a historic moment at the Estadio Azteca. That was the 10,000th goal at the Estadio Azteca, which is pretty crazy. Because actually, like, I didn't think twice about that. I was like, oh, cool, yeah, 10,000 goals, whatever. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what, that is a significant amount of goals here. That's a huge amount of goals. I wonder what stadium actually has the record for the most goals like ever scored in it. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like the Azteca's like up there in like the top 5 or even number 1, just because I can't. That's an incredible tally right there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool because then you start thinking about, I mean, like Bank of California Stadium's only like a year and a half old. How long is it going to take them to get to 10,000 goals?
All depends on how long Vela sticks around, right?
It's true. It's very true. They could also probably get the record for like 10,000 fouls depending on how long Vela stays there.
All right, so other Liga MX results from the weekend. So so Atlas got a 1-0 win over Veracruz. Late game winner there for the away side. 1-1 draw between Puebla and Morelia. Important point there for Puebla. Actually, kind of keep them in the playoff race Julian Quiñones got a double for Tigres. They got a 2-0 win over Pumas, which is pretty important because Gignac, he's had some injury problems. So because that, you kind of wonder like which player is going to step up, and you've had some inconsistent figures there for Tigres in the attack. So it was good to see Quiñones step up. And if I remember correctly, I think Gignac is still doubtful for the next match for Tigres. So I think it was good to see Quiñones step up there. Leon, they got a 2-1 win over Necaxa. That's now 10 wins for Leon. I mean, it's just incredible just to see how well Leon has done, and just to surpass sides like Monterrey and Tigres has been quite a spectacle, and believe it or not, Angel Mena didn't even have a goal or an assist in that win. And then we got wrapping things up with Santos 0, Pachuca 0. And a quick little stat here, something I noticed. So there are only 4 Liga MX teams out there that have no away wins, and 3 of those 4 at the current are at the very, very bottom of the table. So 3 of those 4, that's Morelia in 16th place, Querétaro in 17th place, Veracruz in 18th place, and then that 4th team that is yet to get an away win, that's Pachuca, who are currently sitting in 8th place in the league table. So clearly a different side.
There is proof that you could do the bare minimum and you could still kind of get there.
So there's a potential that Pachuca can qualify for the playoffs. I mean, they got a -1 goal differential. It's a little bit of a tenuous spot, but they could potentially qualify for the Liguilla without a single away win. I think Scholes might have done that like 2 seasons ago. I think that might have happened then. They might have had 1 away win, but that'd be pretty incredible to see that. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
All right, so let's wrap things up. It's almost we've got a few minutes left. Let's talk about the CONCACAF Champions League semifinals. I mean, I'm assuming the fever has probably gone away for MLS fans and for Liga MX fans. I mean, they were never really sick to begin with, when it comes to CCL fever, but we still got to talk about it. Tigres right now they have a 3-0 lead over Santos. Monterrey have that whopping 5-0 lead over Sporting Kansas City. Amy, what should fans expect this week in the second legs when Santos host Tigres and Sporting Kansas City host Monterrey?
Honestly, like pure domination at this point. I mean, I think they should just give it everything they've got. I don't like the only MLS club left is Sporting Kansas City, and unless I don't want to say miracle because I mean maybe it'll come out, but I mean, at this point,
no, come on,
that's a miracle.
5-0, come on.
I think shock to everybody, right? No, I really did think like Sporting Kansas City might give them like some kind of good game or some kind of tough time, and yeah, but to the point that you guys are saying, or like everybody's saying, like for Liga MX clubs, this doesn't even matter. I think you can't blame them for that. I mean, you get really excited for, teams to be able to do good in these competitions or have this kind of like rivalry amongst, North American teams. And then you get results like this. And then it's kind of like, what's the point? Yeah. But I mean, if you see Tigres do well enough, then you could see the best team in the Liga MX, quote unquote, or like one of the best teams possibly do really well. But from that, for that Liga MX MLS kind of debate, it must be frustrating from an MLS side to have to see this happen time and time again, especially when you do think, even for, I don't know, did you think Sporting Kansas City had any type of chance?
I thought that they were going to lose. I definitely thought they were going to lose. I definitely thought they were going to lose the series. I didn't expect 5-0 though. Like that is definitely a very convincing result. And it's frustrating too, as someone who likes both leagues, because there's a part of me that really, really, really wants an MLS side to do well, just so it can kind of like silence any kind of like Liga MX like skeptics are just like, oh, Major League Soccer is or I should say, they say the MLS is the worst league, blah, blah, blah. Like, the Mexican third division is 10 times better than MLS. So like there was a part of me that always wants an MLS side to do well, but there's also a part of me too, because I'm still a Liga MX fan too, that there's a part of me that also kind of like loves the fact that 5-0 scoreline happened. That like when I see that 5-0 scoreline, I'm like, yeah, that's right. Just keeping that MLS down. I don't know. It's hard. It's really hard.
God, you got some Jekyll and Hyde stuff happening here.
You know, it's because I'm Mexican American. You've got that you've got a little bit of that dichotomy there. It's very representative of so many other confusions and just
I think as regardless of what side you're on, I think you just want to see good competition, and people hype it up in that way too, leading up to these matches, leading up to, when it finally gets to, the semis or, the quarters or stuff, and you see them team up against or face off against you, you get excited. But like even Santos against, was it the Red Bulls? Like that also too was kind of like, are you serious? Like it must be exhausting to have to watch that happen time and time again, to the point that, even Atlanta, people were super excited, and then look what happened. And then it's just, I can totally see why people are just like, like frustrated. Like obviously from MLS side to get so frustrated, but from the Liga MX side, it's just like, I'm not even going to bother. What's the point? Like,
exactly.
Anyway,
I don't know. Maybe some people are like, they actually are hyped about it, but like I'm not hyped about like Santos Tigres. I don't care, to be perfectly honest. Like at the same time though, I don't really care about Copa MX until like the semis or the final as well. I don't know, like as someone who likes both Liga MX and Major League Soccer, like just like I don't really care for this TCL that much until later stages, unless of a MLS side does well. And when it comes to Copa MX, I don't really care that much until the later rounds. But maybe I'm just a jaded soccer fan though. Maybe that's something deeper right there. But
you need to look within and see what's going on in here. That's what happened.
I guess I want an MLS versus Liga MX final, and then MLS just so we have a little bit of chaos. But that's not going to happen. But that's not going to happen because Monterrey currently have a 5-0 lead over Sporting Kansas City. So I guess recognizing that like is the next best thing, seeing a Monterrey versus Tigres final, just because that would be kind of cool. That'd be fun just to see. I don't know what the atmosphere.
But it's like the shrug. It's like, that'd be cool. Like it'll be entertaining. We could see what happens there. But is that really what you wanted to see from this tournament? And I think that's what gets people annoyed. Like we've seen that before. We could see that in Liga MX, or it's like you can see it anywhere else. This is supposed to create a platform where we see, I don't know, there's debates about making like a Liga MX MLS kind of like other tournament. This is kind of that starting point, but you don't even get to see it here because obviously in this part the competition is still very much one-sided.
All right, so Amy, we gotta get our predictions right here. So I'll go with my predictions for the semis. I mean, I guess it's pretty easy, right? When you look at the first legs, I mean, I think we're just gonna have a Tigres Monterrey final. I think maybe Santos give Tigres a little bit of trouble, but I think Tigres is still gonna get the win. Sporting Kansas City against Monterrey. I don't know. It could be another 4-0, and I wouldn't be surprised. It's Monterrey versus Tigres, right? Is that what we're predicting?
Look, we said that Tecatito was going to score like 7 goals against Liverpool. So I see like a 6 goal. No, it's going to be Tigres versus Monterrey. Like it's not even a question at this point.
All right, so that's something to keep an eye on this week. And we haven't even talked about the Copa MX final. I mean, should we even dive into the Copa MX final? It's not even on the rundown, but like
I throw it in the chat. You're like, hey, maybe we could just like sneak it in there. Okay, this is our sneak. What do you think the score is going to be? Let's just don't even discuss it. Just give me a score prediction.
America is going to win 3-0. I don't even honestly like. I don't even, maybe the only reason I was like kind of keeping an eye on it the other last week was just because Cholos were involved in it. I mean, so I don't even know if it's this week. That's how little I care about the Copa MX final. I think it's just
it's tomorrow, isn't it?
Is it tomorrow? See, I don't care.
Tomorrow.
But I think America is gonna, if it is actually in fact tomorrow, and I don't think America is gonna host. I think it's actually gonna be in Juarez, if I remember correctly. But I'll go with a 2-0 win for America.
Yeah, I'll go 3-0. I'll go 3-0. They have to redeem themselves after this weekend, so I say 3-0.
All right, so plenty going on this week. Obviously, we have the CONCACAF Champions League. We have the Copa MX. We have the UEFA Champions League. I mean, that's what I'm most hyped about. If Porto can get some sort of big result tomorrow, that might even make my month, to be perfectly honest, if we can see a good result right there. But Amy, let's wrap things up. It's already a few minutes after 8 o'clock. I'll have you give the final words, I I don't know, the moment of zen, I guess, of this Mexican soccer show?
Well, as I did last time I was on the show, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I did while I was on the show. I lowered the volume on a child's iPad. I gave somebody milk. I gave somebody pizza, and I talked to Cesar for about an hour. So that's how it goes sometimes. This is what life is like. Like always, keep an eye out for Adriana and I on our football podcast. It's a lot of fun. I love talking to her. Just as you see the craziness with Liga MX men's side, there's some crazy stuff happening on the feminine side. They're closer to ending their season than the men's side is too. So I think they have like 2 weeks left. So it's getting kind of close. Same thing. It's more like the bottom of the tables of both of the groups to see who gets to go on to the Liga. So keep an eye out for that. We'll have a chance to be able to talk about Champions League, which is cool because we have the opportunity. But yeah, let's just see how this week goes. So I also will be very excited if Porto does really well tomorrow. So let's just keep an eye out for all the stuff that's happening.
Yeah. So thank you, Amy. Thank you, everyone. And yeah, we'll see you on the next episode. Have a good night, everyone.